Picture your own street for a second, the bit where you always turn left. Now imagine a dog you don't know comes around that corner off-leash, and he isn't slowing down. What do you do with your hands? That's the actual question, and I want you to sit with it because almost everybody gets it wrong. And the injury that ends up in a hospital that afternoon usually isn't the one the dogs caused. It's the one the person helping caused, to themselves, in the first 4 seconds. There's one mistake that turns a bad dog fight into a life-changing one for a human being, and nearly every single one of us would make it on pure instinct without ever deciding to. I'm saving that for the end because it's the most important thing in this video, and I want it to be the thing you leave with. Hi everyone, I'm Leo Bennett, your neighborhood dog guy. Now, I want to be straight with you before we go a step further, because you'll find a lot of content on this that isn't. You will see people promise a guaranteed technique that ends any dogfight in 3 seconds. There is no such thing. There is no move, no grip, no trick that reliably stops a fully committed dog every time. And anybody selling you certainty on this is selling you something. What there is a set of things that work far more often than what people actually do in the moment, and a separate set of things that reliably get bystanders bitten. Knowing which is worth more than any single technique, and it's the difference between being useful and being the second casualty. I'll also tell you honestly that some of what circulates on this topic is dangerous for the dog. Techniques that can crush a windpipe or leave permanent damage, taught by people comparing it to a cage fight, which it is not. I'll say plainly where I disagree with the standard advice, and where dog people genuinely disagree with each other, so you can make your own call. So today, how to see it coming, what to do and in what order, what to do afterwards, and the correct way to handle each. And your hands go last. Let's start before the fight, because this is the part that saves the most dogs and the most people, and it's the part nobody wants because it isn't dramatic. Fights don't come out of nowhere. They almost never do. They come out of roughly 4 seconds of extremely obvious information that we walk straight past, usually while looking at a phone or talking to the other owner. 2 dogs go still. The tails stop moving or go high and stiff and quivering rather than sweeping loosely. One goes up on his toes with his weight forward. There's a hard stare and neither one is blinking. Sometimes there's a low growl. Sometimes there's total silence, and total silence is the worst of the two. And here's what most of us do in that exact moment. We tighten the leash, which pins our dog in place, facing another dog, unable to move away, the one thing that would have ended it, while we say, "He's fine, he's friendly," in a voice that is telling him the opposite. The correct way. Learn those 4 seconds and then actually use them. Turn and walk away, cheerfully, like it was your idea, before anything happens at all. Don't let 2 strange dogs greet head-on and tight-leashed on a narrow pavement, because that's the geometry that starts most of them. And if you've got a dog who's been in one before, respect that and stop testing him. A dog with a history isn't going to grow out of it in the middle of a busy park, and every near miss you get away with makes the next one more likely, not less. 2 dogs in the same house who scuffle over resources get fed separately and get their own spaces, permanently, and nobody has to feel bad about that. It isn't giving up, it's just not running the experiment. Now, if it's already happening, before your hands go anywhere near 2 fighting dogs, use everything that isn't your body and use it in the first 2 seconds while there's still a chance of interrupting rather than prying. You'll hear people mock this, the hose, the water, the noise, and honestly, they're wrong too. Plenty of scuffles are noise and posture rather than a committed grip, and plenty of those break on a shock. A hose straight at the face works more often than it should. So does a bucket of water, a can of compressed air, an air horn, a citronella spray, a bin lid slammed hard on concrete. None of it is dignified, and none of it works every time, and every one of them is better than an arm. What doesn't work is the human voice. Screaming, and it's the most natural thing on earth to do, adds arousal to a situation made entirely of arousal, and it makes both dogs harder to reach. The correct way. Know what's in your house and where. If you've got 2 dogs who scuffle, an air horn by the back door costs almost nothing and gives you an option that isn't your arm. And go loud and sudden rather than loud and continuous. It's the surprise that interrupts. Continuous noise just becomes part of the background of the fight, which is exactly what a person shouting eventually becomes. If that doesn't do it, the next thing is a barrier, and I think this is the most underused idea in the whole topic. Your instinct is to reach in and separate them with your body, because that's what love looks like from the inside. What actually works better, almost every time, is to put something solid between them that isn't you. A board, a bin lid, a garden chair, a sheet of plywood, wheelie bin pushed sideways. You are not trying to be strong here. You're trying to break the line of sight and get a physical object into the gap so that when they do come apart, they can't immediately re-engage. Because they will try to, every single time, and that's the part people forget. The correct way. Push the barrier down between them, or slide it across, and keep it there. A blanket or a coat thrown over the head of the more committed dog is a version of the same thing, and it's genuinely effective because it takes the visual target away. And once you've got something in the middle, you use it to widen the gap and keep widening, not to hold a stalemate. The whole job from that moment is distance, and every single foot you add makes the next few seconds easier and safer for everybody, including both dogs. Now, the method that's most widely taught, and the honest limits of it. If a dog has a grip and won't release, you go to the back end. Both people, and it really wants to be two people, one per dog, take hold of the back legs or the hips, up near the top of the thigh rather than down at the ankle, lift the back end off the ground, and walk backwards. And then the bit people miss, which is the bit that keeps your face intact. As you go backwards, turn in a circle. A dog with his back end lifted and moving in an arc can't get his front end round to reach you. Stop moving, stand still, and he can. Correct way. Two people, one dog each, hands on the back legs, lift and circle, and keep going until you are a long way apart. Then straight into separate rooms, behind a gate, in a car, over a fence, somewhere with a door on it. Don't stop at 3 feet and start talking about what happened, because that's where it restarts, and the second round is nearly always worse than the first. And here's the honest part. This hurts, and it can injure a dog, especially if it's done fast and hard on the lower leg. I'd rather tell you that plainly than pretend otherwise. In a genuine emergency, you do what has to be done. But it's a reason to have already tried the water, the noise, and the barrier, because those cost nothing. Then there's the collar and the leash, and here I need to give you a straight answer rather than a confident one. Once dogs are separated, a collar or a leash is how you keep them separated. And if there's a leash anywhere nearby, get one on each dog and get them anchored to something solid. That part is simple, and it's genuinely the most useful thing a leash does in this whole situation. What isn't simple is the family of techniques that use a collar or a leash to restrict a dog's airway in order to force a release. They're taught by experienced people, they do work, and they're also where I part company with a lot of what's online. A dog's windpipe is not built for this, and the difference between a few seconds of pressure and permanent damage isn't something you can judge accurately with adrenaline running and somebody screaming behind you. I've seen what gets called a quick choke leave a dog with a damaged throat. What I will not repeat from anybody is the advice to hold a choke on a dog until he loses consciousness. That is presented as harmless because a cage fighter survives it, and a dog's neck is not a cage fighter's neck. The correct way. Use collars and leashes for control and containment, which is what they're good for. If you're in a situation where you genuinely have nothing else and a child is being bitten, you will do what you have to and no one will second guess you. But don't rehearse that as your plan, and don't let anybody tell you it's a technique with no cost. One more thing that goes against instinct, and it matters enormously. Do not pull the dog who is being bitten. Every part of you wants to grab your own dog and haul him out of there, and it's the worst thing you can do, because a grip on one side plus traction in the opposite direction is precisely what turns a clean puncture into a tear. Punctures heal. Tearing injuries mean surgery, drains, and sometimes weeks of recovery, and a lot of the worst damage in dogfights is done by well-meaning owners pulling in the wrong direction. Same principle with a dog latched onto a person. You don't pull the person away, you move the dog. The correct way. Whoever is doing the gripping is the one you move. If your dog is the one being held, your job is the barrier and the noise and the other dog's back end, not your own dog's collar. It is completely counterintuitive, and you will have to override yourself to do it, in the worst possible circumstances with adrenaline going. Say it out loud to yourself right now. Move the biter, not the bitten. Because you will not be reasoning your way to it in the moment. You'll only have what's already in your head. Which brings me to the last one, and the reason I made you wait. Your hands. Watch any dogfight footage and count how many hands go straight into the middle, right down by 2 working sets of jaws. It's automatic. It's what every decent person on earth does, and it's what I'd probably do too if I stopped thinking for half a second. And it's how bystanders end up with severed tendons, nerve damage, and hands that never fully work again. Because a dog in that state isn't choosing his targets, he's biting whatever arrives in the gap, and that's your fingers. It doesn't mean he's vicious, and it doesn't mean he's turned on you. It doesn't even mean he registered that it was you. Real-world example. A woman I know went in to separate her own 2 dogs she'd raised from puppies, and got hold of a collar right beside a mouth. One of them turned. She lost most of the use of 2 fingers on her right hand, and the thing she said to me afterwards was that she couldn't believe her own dog had bitten her. He hadn't, really, not the way she meant it. He'd bitten a hand that appeared next to a fight. The correct way. Hands stay out of the front third of a dog. Everything you do comes from behind or from behind an object. Back legs, barriers, hoses, leashes, gates. And afterwards, get looked at properly, even if it seems like nothing, because dog bites go deep through a small opening. That opening closes over almost immediately, and what's left is bacteria sealed under the skin. A puncture that looks like nothing more than 2 dots on a knuckle is the absolute classic for turning into a serious infection 3 days later. Hands and joints are the worst places on the body for it. Don't rinse it under the tap and carry on with your day. Get it looked at. So take this one thing from all of it. There is no guaranteed 3-second move, and anybody promising you one is selling confidence rather than teaching you anything. What there is an order of operations. See it coming and leave, then noise, then a barrier, then back legs and circle, then contain. And your hands stay out of the front of the dog the entire time. That's it. That's the whole plan. It's not complicated, and rehearsing it once in your head today is worth more than any technique you learn in a panic. And listen, if you've watched all the way through something this unpleasant, it's because you're the person who wants to be useful rather than frozen when it counts. That's not paranoia. That's just looking after your family. So tell me in the comments whether you've ever had to break one up and what actually worked. The hose, the gate, 2 of you on the back legs, or something nobody would think of. I read every one, and they decide what I make next. And do one thing for me before you close this. Work out where the nearest solid barrier is on your regular walk. You'll be glad you know. Thank you for watching.